Hey guys! So, we're just about to kick off with our live with Makenzie, and I'm super excited for it. I'm just gonna wait for Mac to jump on. Hey Makenzie! Okay, cool, I'll invite you now. Let me figure out how to do this. Oh. Let me see. Okay, I'm just adding you now. Cool, so I'm just waiting for you to accept the ad, Makenzie. Yay! We're here!
Yay. Amazing.
Hey, beautiful.
How are you?
Good.
Oh,
So
you're not as
excited
loud
to-
as I'd like you to be.
Oh, hold on. Maybe it's my microphone hiding in my hair.
Yeah.
Is that
At
better?
first you were, but then I think the headphone maybe messed it up.
Is that better?
No.
No.
Hmm.
Hold up. Let me see.
Yeah. Try it again.
I'll try on the other side. Can you hear me now? Oh, hold up. Some technical difficulties.
Maybe what I'll
Can you
do
hear me
is
now?
I'll put my headphones on too.
Okay, perfect.
And maybe that'll be better.
Is that better for you?
Okay, try that.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Totally. That's awesome.
Okay, perfect. Great. Oh, I just dropped my headphones again.
Oh my gosh. So funny.
There we go. Amazing. Yay. Awesome. Well, I'm so excited to do this live with you today. Thank you so much
Me
for
too.
jumping on.
Oh my gosh. Yes. I'm so excited.
Yeah, I'm really excited that everyone gets to kind of hear from you today. And Anya and I, it's kind of a really poignant live to have as our first, because I don't know if you actually understand, but you were the one who connected Anya and I. Like, we've never actually even met in person before.
Totally.
So it's crazy that you're the first person to jump on a live with us, and I'm really excited about that.
Yeah, that's so amazing. When you emailed me and said that you guys had connected, I was like, who is she talking about? And then I remembered having this really intense conversation about sustainability and sustainable fashion with her in London. And it's just amazing.
Yeah, really cool. So, so very excited and really honored that we get to have you here at this moment. So for you guys who haven't met Makenzie, Makenzie is the founder of Delighted by Dessert Hummus and KAKAO Drinking Chocolate, as well as there's been a few others that you've done over the years as well, hasn't there?
Yeah. Those are the main two right now, though.
Yeah, those are the main two right now. And why I'm really excited for you to get to meet Makenzie today and to really listen to her speak is because Makenzie really is the literal embodiment of Sustainability 5.0. And for those of you who haven't become familiar with Sustainability 5.0, that's an upgraded version of sustainability that incorporates the elements of connection to self, to source, to Mother Earth, to community, and to ancient and indigenous wisdom. And she's the literal embodiment of that. Like, she's bossing it in business by the terms that anybody within the business world would mark you by. But the way she's done it is really through breaking so many rules and through really, I feel like, doing it in such a different way. I've never seen anyone do business in the way that Makenzie has kind of done, and it's been such a marker for me and such a you have been one of my greatest teachers in business, and I'm really just blown away by you.
Thank you so much. That was the most beautiful intro ever, and I'm honored that you see me in that way, and I'm just so grateful to be trusted by you to be here with your community that I know you're so passionate about. So thank you.
Amazing. For those who don't, are you there? Sorry, I think there's a
Yes, I'm here.
minor connection thing. For those who don't know your work, can you just kind of give us a bit of your story?
Say that again. It just cut out a little bit.
I was just saying, could you give us a little bit of your story for those of us on the live who don't know anything about you, and this is our first time meeting you?
Yes, totally. Okay, so where to start? Back in 2014, I had what I call the roughest year of my life, but also the most blessed, because it really had me hit rock bottom and reevaluate my internal landscape and what maybe, what I guess I'd say is a lot of inner child work that I needed to really look at and dive into because of my relationship with my mother and my relationship with my father, both which had been very unique in their own right. But essentially, I kind of hit the ground in 2014, really recognizing that those relationships had a certain impact on me, and that it's time I look at that rather than, just being positive and bypassing, the actual impact that it had on my heart. And what had reflected that was really, how I was showing up in my current relationships, especially my intimate relationships, my commitment issues, my avoidance of intimacy, my lack of honesty in many ways. It had really, had finally hit me that this is something I need to look at. So at the time, I'd always been an entrepreneur. Like, even when I was little, I wanted to have my own restaurant. I would watch the Food Network. I only ever wanted to work for myself. It just wasn't necessarily the path that was encouraged in my household. And when I was growing up. So I had tried to go the traditional route and study nutrition at university. But when I left university in 2010, I went to Australia, actually, and I started my first business, which was a sorry, just fell over, which was a nutrition consulting business, a Pilates studio, and essentially had only, have never worked for anyone since then. I was just very entrepreneurial. But fast forward in 2014, at this time that I was hitting this rock bottom, I was kind of called away from having businesses and was more so focused on finding myself again and actually finding my desire to live, finding my desire to be on the planet. And really what I was asking is, like, what is my purpose? Why am I here? What am I meant to do with that? And so I had pushed pause on all my entrepreneurial ventures and started diving into personal and spiritual development. And for me at first, that was very confronting because I had grown up in a religious household. And for me, what I had interpreted was that, like, a relationship to God and a relationship to anything higher, like higher power, meant fear and meant the opposite of love and the opposite of acceptance and the opposite of unity. And that didn't resonate with my soul. So to come back into my spirituality was confronting at first, because I really wanted to acknowledge, like, what does spirituality mean to me? And how can I discover a spirituality practice that actually feels right in my body? So I eventually got over that, and I was guided to attend my first plant medicine ceremony. And I had done a lot of work leading up to that first ceremony, like every kind, Marianne Williamson, A Course in Miracles, Wayne Dyer, Louise Hay, all that stuff. And really started talking to my higher self and developing that relationship with this guidance system that was not developed from the external world, but that was more so within. And as I started doing that, I was starting to feel a lot better. And then I got this call: do you want to go to this plant medicine ceremony? And I said yes, but I didn't know what I was getting myself into. I didn't know why. I didn't know what it was. And I went that day. I actually drove to Sedona that night, sat in my first ayahuasca ceremony. And in that ceremony, I got my answer. When I asked, what is my purpose? the plant ayahuasca, she said, your purpose is to just spread your glitter. It doesn't matter what you do or how you do it. It's just that you be the light that you are, and you show up so presently in every room that you walk into and with every person. And in that, you will fulfill your purpose. And that for me was this huge sigh of relief, because I had grown up in a household and a society, like most of all of us, where traditional success was so valued, and this masculine drive of doing and succeeding in a certain way was romanticized. And I had this huge breath from that point forward in my life of like, okay, I don't have to try to figure out what I'm going to do in life. I just have to let it happen. And in that, I'm just going to spread my glitter and just be the light that I am. And literally within 24 hours of that first ceremony, my entity, Delighted by Hummus, presented itself to me. And I was actually making my dessert hummus that night, which is something I'd been making for fun for a couple of years at that point. And as I was stirring the chocolate chips into my sweet hummus, I heard this other message, and it said, this is one way you're going to spread your glitter. And so I was like, whoa, what was that? And I woke up the next day, went to the health department, and I got my food permits. And I just started in farmers markets with the first dessert hummus really to shelves. And I did this business. It was my fourth venture. And I started leading that business in such a different way. I did not write a business plan. I did not try to think of any strategy. I did not try to figure out how I was going to fund it. In fact, I started it on my credit cards. And I just knew I'm going to follow my guidance every moment, and I'm going to have one intention, and that is to spread my glitter. And how I did it was I'd show up at the farmers markets and I would just ask Spirit, what would you have me say? What would you have me do? Where would you have me go? And I would ask for that higher guidance to start practicing with my intuition, so that I would it almost felt like just this clarity would come through when I would ask those questions. That wasn't necessarily my mind. It was something greater than me. And I started asking people at the farmers markets, what are you delighted by today? And I just noticed that when I would ask that, people would smile and they would say what they're delighted by, whether it was simple or big. And I just knew that when they state that, they're going to attract more things they're delighted by in life. And that was my way of spreading my glitter at the farmers markets. And so was born Delighted by Hummus. And that has been my journey. You know, every step of the way, I've worked with plant medicines, but also more importantly, integrated my lessons into my life. And that's why from very early on in my journey with plant medicines, I was like, the ceremony is not the ceremony. Life is the ceremony. It's like when you wake up out of your plant medicine ceremony, it's like you now have the real ceremony begin, because that it's like you get all of these real life tests in real life opportunities to practice and embody what it is that you heard and what it is that you're getting guidance on. So that is what I've done with Delighted by. And honestly, there have been a lot of uncomfortable moments, and what we can get into what you want to ask next. But it's been a really beautiful journey, because Delighted by has been different from day one, and that it's always been from my higher guidance rather than what the traditional business world tells me to do. And in that, we've taken a lot of risks, and in that, we've discovered a ton of miracles that happen when you do that. And it just comes down to, at the end of the day, business is not about what you're selling, really. For me, it's about who you're becoming. And so in all the discomfort and in all the guidance and in all of the real life opportunities, I always say this, that I really truly have and continue to become the woman that I desire to be. And that to me is what business really is. It's personal and spiritual development every single moment. And it's an opportunity to our heart space. It's an opportunity into connecting, like really connecting with people, even when it's uncomfortable. and having these real, I mean, when you're in business, you have to be talking to people, right? You have to be employing people and selling to people. And so you're constantly getting mirrors and you're
Yeah.
constantly getting opportunities to talk and to connect intimately. And that is what I feel is really on my heart right now about conscious business. So that's my story in a nutshell.
Amazing. Yeah, I think the next question I have, because you've really kind of gone into how you've, like, when you started, you were at this really low point for yourself, and it was from that point on that you kind of cultivated this spiritual connection within your own life and your own spiritual practice, which led you into Delighted by Hummus and into a new way of kind of doing business with Delighted by as your entity. But for a lot of like our designers, this is a really new conversation, and there might not be a spiritual practice there yet, and they might still be at the same place. And I think, like, how do designers who are really wanting to have this conversation and wanting to cultivate that deeper sense of connection in their creating and in their making and in their business, but perhaps don't know where to begin, how do you even, like, how does that begin, and how do you begin to have that relationship with an entity, and for those who aren't familiar with the concept of an entity, what even is an entity, and how do you have a relationship with that? Sorry, that's a really big question, but
No,
can we
perfect.
kind of dive into that?
Totally. Yes, I love this, and I love speaking about this with creatives, because to me, with creatives and designers, they are just such pure channels. And when I say channel, I mean like an open vessel. And this open vessel, it has this opportunity to bring light through and down into Mother Earth, through products, services, creations, designs, art. And I would say the best thing you can do to start experiencing this for yourself is to just ask the question, or just like I remember back in the day, I didn't have all this language, but all I would do is say the question of, may I just be guided? Or what would you have me do? What would you have me say? Where would you have me go? And who you're asking that to, it doesn't matter. For you, if you want to say God, if you want to say source, higher self, soul, or your entity, many times along this journey, more times than not, I have asked Delighted by to channel through me so that I actually get out of the way and my brain gets out of the way, and I let Delighted by's mission, Delighted by's vibration, Delighted by's purpose to come through me and speak through my words, through my emails, and through my creations. So if you are a designer and you want to open yourself up to this really high frequency of love that's going to actually birth itself through something visual, all you have to do is ask. You just have to ask yourself to open up in that way. And that's why I love talking about like KAKAO, for instance, or anything that has to do with the heart, because that's really where it's going to come through. This isn't necessarily about, you know, your spirituality. If you're called to your own spiritual practice, that's great. But I think what is more important is being able to create and channel from the heart space rather than from the head. So when you can like get your mind out of the way, which has been so overdeveloped for centuries, you know, then what can come through the pen, what can come through your paintbrush, what can come through, you know, your design software, whatever it is that you're using, whatever comes through you, you'll know is from such a pure and high frequency that the vibration that those designs end up carrying are going to be so impactful on an invisible level that you could never even put words to. So that is really, you know, my passion is again, you know, just to put it back into words for you guys of like how to take this away. I would say before you start creating, just get quiet, set your intention to open your heart, and ask for your guidance system, whatever that looks like to you, to come through you, through your heart, and then out onto the paper, the computer, or whatever it is. Or for me, the kitchen. You know? So when it comes to an entity, so an entity has many different meanings, and the way that we're using that word here is essentially a business, an organization, I'll just use Delighted by Hummus as an entity example. So Delighted by Hummus is an organization that offers a product called Dessert Hummus, and she is a feminine entity. She has a network of employees who has a network of customers. And what happens here when you actually get to refer to your business as a separate entity is, again, it's giving you another way to get out of the way. It's giving you another way to like remove your mind, because your mind can be so limiting. So what I've done with Delighted By is I've formed a relationship with that entity, and I will talk to her about what it is she's desiring. A lot of times the human self and the entity self is different. They have different missions. They have different purposes. They have different services. They are very different voices even. So if I'm channeling my soul and I'm talking or I'm speaking as a human, that's going to be different than if I am speaking on behalf of KAKAO, the entity, because sometimes, like the human self in this instance, wants to play a little bit smaller, and the entity wants to play a lot bigger. They have a bigger level of trust. They have a bigger level of receptivity. The entities are tapped into the universal source of abundance, whereas the human self has all the human conditioning that can be limiting, along the way. So does that answer your question? That was like a very complex. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and I think it's really good because it's kind of giving some, it's just letting people explore this and understand from a wider context what that looks like. You mentioned a little bit about how entities and your soul have different voices and different purposes and things like that. I think that's such an important note, because in the design kind of fashion world where you're creating physical products, it's such a high speed, high demand kind of industry. And like, not Makenzie, that's you, Anya and I have spoken a lot about this, how there's a lot of kind of mental health issues or like emotional trauma that goes on because designers are just they're so in service of that sometimes they're not recognizing the need for self-nourishment or listening to their own soul's purpose or their own soul's voice and like where to take a break. How have you done that? Because like these entities that you serve are not small. Like they are just huge, and they've done huge things in the physical world. So how do you navigate listening to both your own soul's voice and your entity's voice and making sure you're nourished and not like burnt out all the time?
I love that question, because you're highlighting how much we have served and given ourselves over to a vision, but really compromised our nervous systems. And I've experienced this a ton. I did not have this figured out when I started working with Delighted By. In fact, I had to learn it through a lot of contrast. So I would start to feel my nervous system shaking. I would feel the shortness in my breath. I mean, many moments, Michael can attest to this, I would get so overwhelmed, and it'd just be like, wow, I can't do this anymore. It's because I was letting Delighted By come in and through me, but also letting my mind go too far with it. There's a difference between channeling an entity and then also being like letting your brain as a genius, as a creative, as a designer, as an artist, just get so immersed into it that you actually forget about the rest of your body. So for me, I just think it's awareness. I think that the more you can listen to your body, the better. And the best tool I ever give to entrepreneurs is getting in nature. Like there should not be a day. There should not be a day when you're creating or channeling that you don't step outside, put your feet on the ground, open your hands and breathe just for 10 minutes. Because, and see, it's so funny. I know this as an entrepreneur, as a creative, you get so much resistance to just doing that. because like you said, you just become so absorbed into what it is that you're creating. But you have to just learn this wisdom of your body to be able to stop, step outside, and breathe. I think that we're a long way to go in this world. You know, you can't just hide behind your computer and be inside for 10 hours and expect to have a healthy, balanced life. But you're only going to learn through your own contrast, you know?
Mm.
So the other
Yeah.
thing is, I don't think that entities are necessarily wanting us to compromise ourselves at all. I do think it's our own mind and our own lack of structure that we've put in our own lives. You know, the Western world has totally said it's okay to work indoors all day. They've said that that's fine. And it's up to us to really redefine it. What Delighted By tells me a lot is that she doesn't actually need me to be working the amount of hours I think I need to be working. And she said that I can access magic and access external resources and access miracle consciousness by her doing it all in the invisible realm without me having to be there all the time. This is not something that a human is used to. This is not something we've been taught. This is not something that's been accepted or even proved to work yet, which is why I'm so passionate about Delighted By KAKAO, because I'm out to prove that it's working and to let you know it is working.
It is working.
For me,
yeah.
this is, yeah, it's working. It's funny because the more in alignment that I become with my health, my balance, my feminine, the more abundant the business becomes. And for me, obviously, it's not about ever making money. But what I love about Delighted By's abundance is that she becomes a channel for circulation. So our team continues to grow. Our team continues to thrive. We get to reach more people. We get to play with different events. We get to experience fun and playful ideas for marketing. We get to spread our glitter in a bigger way. So for Delighted By to have gone, you know, we launched to shelves in 2016, and now we're reaching the end of 2016, and we'll sell $6 million worth of hummus just this year alone. And that's pretty record breaking, you know, to go from nothing in 2016 to where we are now. So the only reason I feel that we're able to do that is because of the continuous alignment we're inviting into our bodies. So I'm just going to continue to play with it. And it is a challenging thing. So I encourage every one of you to play with that and see how much you can create without putting pressure on your physical body.
Yeah, and and what I find really interesting about that within within the sustainable fashion scene is that like we're working to save Mother Earth or to protect her, right? But we're not spending a lot of time with her actually. So we're referring to the handbooks that people are saying this is how you should do business to make you know, a fashion business sustainable. But we're not actually going out and asking herself like, what do you want from me? Like, how are you? Like, how do you want to like serve me? Because she wants to serve us and make sure that like our nervous systems aren't completely wound up. And all of these questions we can go to her to ask. Yes. We're trying to serve her without actually ever going to her, which is just crazy to me. Yeah, but I think we're so addicted to being busy, and there's a lot of guilt around like because we've been programmed for so long by the external world to measure our success by our busyness and as one of the markers that we're never actually it's like rewriting that whole programming around that, which is like really hard for a human, I think.
It totally is. One of my best friends, Aaron, actually, he was speaking to me about, well, he had read a Gene Key, and it was all about returning to the vibration of Mother Earth, which is the vibration, the frequency, the actual frequency, which is measured in hertz. It's like so much slower than you'd think. And so the best way that we can come into alignment with her is to slow down and to breathe and to do everything very intentionally and not rushing. But yeah, I think that people are so productivity focused. They're like, how much can I get done? Whereas the thing is, though, if you do that, then what it is you just designed and what it is that you just created is going to carry that frequency. So I think one of the most powerful things you can do for Mother Earth is to be, especially because a lot of, so I'll just start here. When you create from a calm nervous system, you're actually aligning with Mother Earth so that those creations come through with that vibration. So now you now have those products, services, and designs and creations that are operating. Keep swallowing over, sorry.
It's so good.
I know. This is like, woo. You have these products and services that are now holding that frequency, which are, I feel, contributing to the humans that are on the planet, which are then contributing back to Mother Earth. It's, for me, I love it with food because that food product is actually going into the people's bodies and then going down into the earth through their bodies. So it's a really cool cycle. So it's something that I think we need to pay more attention to, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I had a question and it just disappeared on me. So like, so as people are kind of, I think the thing with Sustainability 5.0 is it's inviting creatives into an upgraded version of sustainability, which incorporates all those elements. But that's really freaking hard to do because it requires a lot of cultivating of slowness and of connection within your life. But you've really done that in such a profound way. Like, you've made calls that just don't make sense in the traditional business world, like with Shark Tank, or even the way that you do your social media. It doesn't fit the script which we're all given, and I think that's such an important thing to, as we're looking at conscious business, it's like evolving the way we do business and evolving the markers we mark ourselves against. But like, I don't know how to structure this question. Can you just kind of speak to that, like how you've done that? Because some of the calls you've made just don't make sense. And like from the paradigm that the majority of the world operate in business from. And I think it requires such courage to be able to do that. But it also requires a lot of self-awareness and a lot of introspection and a lot of connection. Yeah, I don't know. Can you just speak to some of your story around that and what that's looked like?
Sure. Great question. I love just giving credit where credit is due. So for me, this whole journey has been very much assisted by Mother Earth through plant medicine ceremonies. And that has really challenged me. It's had me open in ways that is so untraditional. It's literally changed my brain chemistry and also given me guidances that are just so scary and encouraged me to follow that fear. So I guess, the biggest thing I tell entrepreneurs too in this regard is that fear is such a good thing in this case. Like when you feel yourself coming up against a decision and your heart's pounding and you're kind of scared and you're really uncomfortable and you're really throwing yourself into this mysterious outcome in this complete unknown, that is where the juiciness is. So we do talk about Shark Tank a lot and talk about, when I walked away from Mark Cuban, that's one example. And that's just one of so many examples where I was invited into making a decision that was so scary and uncomfortable. It's like, I feel like Delighted By has been this huge playground of a school for me. And it's just constantly taking me and like stretching me. And it's just constantly like, and this is why the art of surrender is so important. It's like when you come up against that fear and you come up against that unknown, to just drop and surrender whatever the outcome could be, the more and more you do that, the more and more you're going to learn that you can really trust that space. Like for me, when something crazy happens, like this has happened recently in my life, like completely unknown, completely unexpected, it was scary and confronting. And then when I was able to open my hands and drop, I'm like, wow, there's something big coming, like really, really good that's about to come, because I've just learned that. And so I guess what I encourage everyone to do in your business and in your creation and in your connection with your entity, make time to sit down and to really listen. For me, that looked like writing to my entity and asking for that guidance. I also encourage you to find a tool for you that works. For some, it is writing, going out in nature. For me, it was plant medicine ceremonies, and for some, it's meditation. It's whatever works for you. Find that tool that can really bring you into that level of awareness that, Amy, you were talking about. And then from there, start practicing that. When this comes up for you, just throw yourself into the unknown. It's so scary at first, I know. It's very uncomfortable. But now it's like literally I've had so many opportunities to practice this that instantly when I become uncomfortable, I'm like, fuck, bring it on. Like I know something good is coming. So like, for instance, recently we have been making a lot of hires and bringing more full-time people on for Delighted By. And I've noticed that people's requests for salaries have been more so than what conventionally people would pay them. And I'm like, wow, I'm really being stretched here to hold a bigger level of abundance so that I could circulate it out so that my people feel appreciated and they feel provided for and they feel safe to contribute themselves to this vision that we have as a collective, organization. And I have been a bit uncomfortable with it because it goes against what is conventional. And yet I just know that that's what I'm being asked to do. I know that the new way of business doesn't include hierarchy. It doesn't include looking at what a typical person would get paid in this realm. For me, what I'm experiencing is that the new way of hiring is asking that person what is going to have you feel provided for, appreciated, and nourished in this environment. And if I feel that you're in alignment with my vision, then I know that you're the kind of person that can hold the amount of abundance you're asking for. And I know that if you were attracted to me and you were attracted to my organization and you're asking for X amount of money, then I know that my entity Delighted By is going to bring through that amount of money so that you're taken care of. This has required me, the human, to get completely out of the way so that I don't block what it is my entity's trying to bring in so that this person is provided for. It's like, it's totally just happening around me, and the human is going to feel uncomfortable as all these things are happening, and you just have to completely let it go. So that's an example.
And that's amazing, because I think that can lead into the next question, which is that like a lot of within this space, it can be like sustainable fashion can be a lot more financial commitment than other kinds of fashion. Like you're paying living wages, you're paying for materials that cost a lot more than perhaps a non-sustainable version of that. And that requires it requires so much more investment, but it can be very easy to feel like when you hear the noise of I need to make so much money, and you need to be so successful or whatever, sell this many, or all the noise of the business world, it can be very easy to feel like your attention is being, or maybe I could just do it in this way until I have enough money to invest in slightly more sustainable fabrics, or until I have the money to invest in, living wages or whatever. It's very easy to get distracted by that. Can you maybe speak to some of the moments where you've just really had to trust because your human side was being invited into a new kind of story around your abundance, but you've had to trust because your entity's been asking you to make commitments financially that maybe were a really big stretch for you?
Yeah.
I don't know if that makes sense as a question.
It does. It does. When it comes to abundance, we have to remember that the mind is not remember with abundance is that the mind is not going to be able to comprehend or wrap, like, so you have the left and right brain, and the logical side of your brain cannot actually comprehend the amount of abundance that's available to us. And so for me, this has been very psychological. It's been like my relationship to abundance has been, yeah, very psychological. I've had to ask my higher self, the plant medicines, or any assistance possible to work on my brain so that I'm not dumping this chemical of fear into my body when it comes to money. And oftentimes, I mean, again, so I started the company on credit cards with Delighted By. With KAKAO, I did the same thing. I was still like not selling my hummus yet. I was at a trade show and I was drinking my KAKAO and I heard, go to Guatemala. It's time to bring this to the world. I'm like, worst timing possible. I have 2 maxed out credit cards. I still am trying to, like, I'm knee deep in Delighted By, and you're telling me to get myself to freaking Guatemala. And I had known at that point that I have to listen to my guidance, and I was scared shitless, but I ended up, you know, booking my flight on a credit card and getting to Guatemala. And by the way, this is not me telling you that I'm endorsing credit card debt at all. It just, I'm letting you know that that was my guidance at the time. It was so clear. It was like, you're doing this now because you know what the future holds. And that I just took that risk. So, I always use this as an example because if I wouldn't have gotten on that plane to Guatemala, I wouldn't be on this call right now. I wouldn't know Amy, you know, I wouldn't know all of you guys and be connected to this community if it wasn't for me taking that risk with KAKAO. And that's just one example. Like, I just think that when it comes to money, that could be a whole other call. But you just have to keep surrendering into there's so much abundance available to you, and we have to disconnect from what society has conditioned in us. So the other thing with abundance is you have to be so clear to the universe what it is that you're ready to receive and open yourself up to. So when I hopped on the plane, booked myself that ticket on the credit card, I was telling the universe, okay, I'm clear. This is like, I'm showing up. And I know that you're going to provide for me, and I'm not really giving you another option. So here we go. So if you're going to choose to use unsustainable materials right now, but you're hoping that that makes you a certain amount of
Makenzie, I think you just cut out for a second. Can anybody else hear Makenzie? No, you can't. Okay, cool. I'll just invite her. I'll invite her back. Hold up. There you go. Makenzie, you just cut out. I've invited you back on, so I'm just waiting for you. Yeah, there you go. I just sent you the request, so you just have to accept it. It just says waiting for you to join. Yep. It just says waiting for, I'll send it again, okay? Are you on? KAKAO. Are you there, babe? There we go. Just waiting for you to jump on. Oh,
Yeah.
sorry guys. Awesome, you're back on.
I'm back. Okay. So
you were saying
yeah.
that if you are starting a
Yes.
business with unsustainable materials, hoping to make enough money to, and that's when you cut out.
Yeah, I would just be really clear with what it is that you're really requesting from the universal supply of abundance, which I feel does come from Mother Earth. And that's why my relationship to Mother Earth has been so key in my relationship to money and abundance and resources. So what I would do if I was in that position is I would not choose to start with unsustainable materials. If for me, my guidance and my higher self and my heart was really wanting to have, to only use sustainable materials, I wouldn't let money get in the way of doing that. So another way to go about that would be to pause and to maybe write out or speak out or connect into your desire to use sustainable materials now. And then ask and sit with and explore what is maybe something within you that's keeping you from receiving the level of abundance that's going to provide for that. So when you do that and you address any of those blocks, that is going to open up so many miracles for you. It's going to attract investors. It's going to attract resources that again, your mind cannot come up with these scenarios. Your mind cannot come up with the different ways that money and abundance is going to flow into your life. And that's when I have raised capital for Delighted By, none of them are traditional. None of those circumstances. And a few of those people are on this call right now. And they can all speak to just how much of a quote unquote coincidence it was that we got to attract into each other's field, and that they're now shareholders in my company Delighted By. The same goes for KAKAO and how it started and how it got funding in the beginning. And so that is it. It's like, what signal? You want to ask yourself a really good question. What signal am I putting out to the universe? It's basically like what your actions are right now is going to define what is going to be flowing into your awareness, what's going to flow into your life experience. So if you're acting from fear, or if you're acting from a lack mindset right now, then there's a good possibility that will reflect in what actually comes in. But if you can sit in it a little bit longer and make sure, no, I'm not going to put anything out there unless it's from pure abundance, from a pure belief, from my pure deep knowing that this is the way I want to do it, then the universe will say, oh, she's got it now. She's got it. Okay, let's flow in. It's universal law that you're essentially playing with. But I use the word playing because you have to start playing with it if you want to see if it works or not. And that's going to make you be a little uncomfortable at first, but that's okay. You're just stretching your abilities, you know. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's such a good point to make, like playing with it. Like even with starting to create that connection with your entities, even if you're not convinced about it, it's just that playing with it, and even just pretending until it becomes real for you.
Totally.
Because like it is such an unnatural to our current human operating system way of being that like that playing has been really pivotal for me, at least. Yeah, just pretending until it becomes really real for me in the beginning was really helpful.
Yes, I love that, because like at the end of the day, we could be making it all up. I'll be very honest. Delighted By might not be a separate entity, but at the same time, it so helps me as the human to be able to connect in with her in that way. And again, it's very psychological. You're allowing yourself to get around the mind and to open yourself up to something that does not come with our conditioning. So I think you're right. Just play with it, and then it will become so real. It's like, I do know DB is a separate entity as me, but in the beginning I was like, whoa, like what is this? This feels outside of me. This feels like I could talk to her. It feels like a different voice. It's like, just play with it. I love that.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's so many calls that you would make that as a human, like there's no fucking way there are things that I would never, ever, ever do as a human that my entities would ask me to do. Even starting this Sustainability 5.0, Anya and I, as humans, probably would have just waited another few years or not done it at all. But it was being asked to be done, and so I think just even having that playfulness, and if at the end of the day, like you said, it turns out that it's not real, who cares? It's a way to tune into the fact that that is not me, that is not you, and that perhaps there are things that we're being asked to do that we wouldn't do ourselves.
Exactly. It's so true.
Yeah.
I love that.
Awesome. I think the last question that I'd love for you to touch on is really around community. Like, this is one thing that I think you've done so beautifully, is that you guys have built such beautiful community around both Delighted By and around KAKAO. And, you know, the current business world kind of invites us into marketing strategies and funnels and bots and all this stuff that's really confusing, but doesn't actually cultivate a lot of connection. So is there anything you can share around creating connection with your community and calling in like a way deeper sense of connection with the people that exchange, like that are buying your product? Yeah.
That's great. Well, I'll start walking through some steps, but I will say this wasn't something that we thought about in the beginning, to say, well, we're going to cultivate this community by doing X, Y, or Z. And how it actually happened was step one was getting really clear of what our intention is for offering this product to the world, and getting really clear of what our true heart's desire is. And so for me, at the end of the day, both Delighted By and KAKAO, they carry this vibration of love. And I am so lit up by both of those entities, and those, you know, I know what went into them and where they were birthed from, that I'm just so passionate about sharing them. But there's this level of attachment that I don't really necessarily care how many people interact with those products, because for me, the true delight is just to bring them through and to connect with the one person by one person by one person along the way. And so that's what I would say is, like, these entities, these creations, these products are really just an excuse to have intimate relationships and to be so filled up on a soul level. What we attract into our awareness, into our experience when we do something with this kind of purity and with this kind of love. And so that's what I've noticed about Delighted By. Most things, like, we can say, oh, Delighted By has had X, Y, and Z success, but the real success no one knows about. The real success are my relationships. Those, and KAKAO is the same thing. So, like, I never had an intention of selling a lot of KAKAO. I saw there was a need to bring ceremonial KAKAO to the world, because I couldn't even find it myself at the time. Like, I couldn't even find a place to buy it. So I was like, well, if I can't buy it, I need to find a way to buy it. And I made it. So for me, that was like, if one person wants this, awesome. I did not know this community was going to form around it, but I think it was that level of purity and simplicity that created the vibration that allowed in for this community to come in. It's because there was never an intention of making money or achieving a certain goal. It was just, I know that I'm being guided to create this, so I'm going to do it. No matter what the outcome is, no matter how many people find it, no matter who thinks I'm cool or what my reputation is or anything, I'm just going to put it out there for the sake of the painting itself. Like, that's what I always use the analogy of, like, it's not about the end painting, it's about the paintbrush and how it feels on the canvas. And so that was, and at the end of the day, like, I've noticed that so many people have been attracted to cacao. And it's been such a blessing for us. Like literally, I get tears in my eyes when I think about it, because these beings of love that attract into our field, it's just so fulfilling and nurturing and fun and playful. It's like contributing to this deep sense of community that is all about the human, that's what the human experience is about. And so I want to say something here about this. When it comes to human relationships, they aren't easy. And sometimes they can be, depending on, you know, what the karma is there. But a lot of times human relationships are going to mirror things that are uncomfortable. And what we've done with Delighted By, with our team members and our brokers and the people we come into contact along the way, is we've said yes to being 100% authentic with what it is we're feeling in those dynamics. And we have brought ourselves forward in saying, this is what's showing up for me. And rather than only focusing on the result of selling hummus or on the result of selling cacao, we have focused on having deep, intimate relationships and being completely authentic in those communications, even when it's scary, even when it's hard, even when it's confronting. And my investors that are on this call right now, they can attest to this kind of work and the level of intimacy that gets created when you can just speak from that place. And, you know, Jocelyn, Aaron, Joy, and Egbert right here, they're perfect examples of like, yeah, we went into this together to create an epic brand and to bring through an amazing product. But what's really coming from it? Our relationship. And we've yelled at each other, and we've had fights, and we've had arguments, and we've had uncomfortable conversations over and over and over again. But they are my family, you know. And so this is what I think in terms of creating community. I would just say, be so ready to just open your hands, open your arms, and be willing to be uncomfortable with that level of authenticity and that level of communication and intimacy. That's what I desire for my community, is that they know they are 100% safe to be themselves, and 100% safe to be their human selves and to have feelings and to say what they're feeling and to know that they'll be caught and not rejected. And then they can also trust that I'll be able to sit here and say, well, I feel this way. And let's work on that. Let's lean in. Let's expand here. It's what I'm speaking to is all heart consciousness. That's it. It's just when you live and breathe from your heart space, it doesn't mean things are going to be perfect. A lot of times it means they're going to be messy. But the human experience is messy. There's pain, there's pleasure, there's ups, there's downs. You know, no one is perfect. But this is what comes from that, is just this deep, I mean, I keep getting this picture of this circle, these cacao ceremonies that we've had with our community. It's just insane, you know, that we can go through what we've gone through, and yet we can still sit there with so much love and bliss and joy and gratitude in our hearts for each other, just for the sake of being on the journey with each other, you know, because being human is hard, and just to be able to still have that family at the end of the day, it's just a blessing. So I don't know, that's a long answer, but yeah.
Amazing. I love it. Thank you so much for giving us your time today. I really cannot tell you how much I appreciate it, how much Anya appreciates it, and we're just so thankful for you, and so thankful that you just spread your glitter the way that you do. Really don't even have the words for it. So
thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much.
I just want to say thank you. I'm obsessed with what you're creating. It is so pure and so channeled and so incredible. And truly, you know, the fact that you're not going about this in a traditional, you know, like you said, social media, sales funnel, bots, and all of that, the fact that you're going to be another example out there of just creating and birthing from that pure essence, your community is only going to continue to build. And that is just that gets me so excited for you guys. So just keep doing what you're doing. Yeah, love you
Thank
guys
you
so
so
much.
much. Love you. And yeah, thanks so much for today. And I will see you soon.
Okay,
Bye, babe. Bye.
bye.
Okay. Awesome, guys. I will